Rob, my friend, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. How are you today?
Doing well, my friend. How are you?
Blessed, dude. I'm suntanning, warm, chilling by the beach, my friend. We
You
miss you
guys
though.
are, yeah, we miss you guys. You're killing us down there. Wish we were still there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're back home and doing the things that you do to make people better. And I was I'm just excited to get you on the show and be able to share a little bit of your story with our community and just let them learn from Rob Short, two-time Olympian. How cool is that?
Yeah, it was always my dream, I guess. But I don't know. Did I take it for granted? I don't think so. I sure enjoyed it. Man, yeah, it was cool. It was cool. And if I could go back, I'd love to, and I'd make some changes. But I'd sure love to go back and try it again. But
Yeah.
when you hit your 50s, you realize that ain't happening. So
I don't know, man. I just saw somebody wanted to start the enhanced Olympics. I don't know if you saw that, where everybody gets to be on steroids. I'm like, yes, there's a chance again.
oh, maybe there is.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy that was going to do it, but some kind of enhanced,
No way.
yeah, where everybody gets steroids, so then you can kind of compare them.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Rob, I'm excited to have you here. But before we get to like the heavy part and sharing your story, I got to make sure you're warmed up. Like I can't just have
Okay.
you try, especially like you said it, dude. We're in our 50s now. If we just jump right in the lift and we're gonna tear something.
That's for sure.
So I gotta warm up to get out of bed sometimes. I don't want to take it for granted that you're warm.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, you ready for this, Rob?
Yeah.
All right, you're stranded on a deserted island. You get to have one food for the rest of your life. What is Rob gonna be eating?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yep. I would probably say pizza. And
Okay.
it sounds a bit lame, but I love cheese and we eat a lot of veg. We don't eat meat. And then I love bread. So I kind of can put it all into one. So I'd be probably pretty happy. I'd probably miss the red wine, but
Mm.
you said I could only have a food. So
Yeah, there
yeah.
you go. All right, you get to have a superpower. What superpower would you want, and why would you want it?
Um, uh, I mean, yeah, of course, world peace and all that sort of stuff, but probably it's a bit selfish.
Yeah.
I would probably say I'd love to go have the ability to go back and speak with the people I've lost. And that sounds
Cool.
maybe a bit morbid, but yeah, I would like to kind of be able to check in with some of my family members that I've lost in my past.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty powerful one.
Yeah, maybe a bit heavy, but I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good, man.
yeah, I don't
That's
know.
good. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book. I'm reading a really good book right now. I'm just going to stick with that. It's called Born to Run, and I'm
Okay.
only about halfway through it. It's just kind of like a running story, uh, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I recommend to anyone. Rach recommended it, but I'm only halfway through, so I won't
Okay.
tell too much about it. But
Female, is it chronicling a female runner?
no, it's about this tribe of runners that
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's so impressive, so impressive. And they speak about a few other very impressive runners. Right now, I'm reading about this man. I can't remember her name, but she's a very impressive female runner, and they're speaking about her. So yeah, I mean, I love trail running. It's
Yeah.
I don't do as much as I'd like with the little ones around, but that's one of my biggest passions. So it's cool to read about it.
You gotta keep going, man, because pretty soon they're gonna be big enough to catch you.
Like he keeps saying, Brett keeps saying, yeah, I'm going to throw you over my shoulder soon, Dad. I'm like, you probably are, kid.
Dude, I'll never forget the first because Trey always sprinted with me. We ran a lot of sprints.
Yeah.
And the first time, like he was probably like a junior in high school and he just started beating me. And I was like, dang it. There's nothing I can do. But there's always something you can do, right? I
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
cheating. I just started
No,
one when he wasn't ready. Like I'd go on two instead of three. Hey, it's home team rules, my friend. Home team rules.
I remember when I was on the Canadian team and we were in Ireland and we decided to have a sprint race. It's nothing about my kid catching up, but a couple of the young guys said, let's have a sprint race, Shorty. And I was like, yeah, okay, for sure. Well, I cheated, but they still beat me. I was like, damn, that backfired. So, anyways, they still laugh about that.
That's funny. All right, you
Yeah.
get to have dinner with one person. They could have passed or still be with us. Who would you want to have dinner with, and what would you want to ask them?
Okay. I won't choose my mom because that was part of my superpower for sure. I would choose David Beckham of all people.
Really?
Yeah, he was. It's weird to have an idol that's younger than you, but I was born in England, big England fan, and man, I've enjoyed watching his entrepreneurial sort of vibe that he's got going on after the sport, and obviously he's very stylish. And not that I'm very stylish, but I'm just always, yeah, I've just always followed him, and yeah, I would like to. What would I like to ask him? Man, I would like to hear about his transition away from being an athlete because I found that hard to try to, you know, find my identity again a little bit. And, I moved back from being in Holland for 14 years, and I'd love to hear how he did it. I can't imagine. Maybe he just jumps into the show business side of things, but I can't imagine it was easy to walk away from that game. And yeah, anyways, that's probably who I would choose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I think especially for men, so much of our identity gets wrapped around in what we do, right? I mean, obviously you're at the pinnacle being an Olympian, but like for a lot of people, just even their day to day, like how do I provide for my family? That what I do becomes my identity. When it's time to change, it is tough to transition and to let go of what you've established yourself at and find a new way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, yeah, it took me a while. It sure took me a while. So I'm sure you felt it after your MMA stuff, right? So, um, yeah, but you got to shift paths and you got to pick it up. And yeah, having children and meeting Rach, my wife, that sure helped me on the road to kind of moving on and finding myself again a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's go back. Let's talk about the road to the Olympics. And something I'm really fascinated with is when did you know that it was a possibility?
I knew it was a possibility pretty early on. Field hockey's not a huge sport in our country. Um, and I was kind of playing soccer and field hockey at a young age. And around 15, I realized that, I was starting to get looked at by the national program. And Canada, sort of they make the Olympics quite often. So I was like, oh man, I could be Olympian. And I had these two coaches, Mike Muller and Guy Mannering, that really, we were in this small town called Tawasin, and they, Mike was playing in the Olympics. I can't remember what year it was. It must have been, was it LA 84? I think
Yeah,
he was
LA
playing.
was
And
84.
I think it was 84. I remember watching him play. And so I would have been 12 years old. And I was just like, oh man, that is the best. And we had a few ball boying events at the World Cup and stuff where we could see these guys playing. And I kind of realized that, yeah, this is something that I can do. And so that, sort of 12 to 15, I played a lot of field hockey, and then I moved away from soccer. I actually wasn't even that good at soccer, if I'm honest. So it was an easy transition, and then it just was. I never looked back, really. Yeah, but it was hard. It took me 4 years of trying out for the national team to make it. So it wasn't like I just walked in there.
Right. Yeah, talk to so your coach tells you, Rob, you got a shot at this.
Yeah.
You go home and tell your parents right away, or do you keep it to yourself?
Oh yeah, I told my parents right away. I was pumped. Yeah, I was pumped.
What'd they say?
I think they expected it, eh? I, like
Okay.
I think they did. I think people were starting to talk and say, okay, this guy's got something, and um, I think they kind of expected it, and maybe I did as well. I hope that doesn't sound
Oh,
arrogant,
that's
but I
good.
was, yeah, I figured it was coming. I didn't figure into 4 years of training hard, trying to make the team, seeing all my buddies make it before me, and I found that really hard. That's what I didn't anticipate, but I think that might have been good for me.
Yeah. So, because that was my next question. When they told you that, were you excited? Were you afraid? Nervous? Like when they first broke the news to you, like, hey, if you keep grinding and put your head down and focus on this path, this is possible.
Yeah, I was excited. A guy named Hash Kanji, he lives on the island now. He asked me out, and I think it was 17 for my first training with the national team, and I was out there with 38-year-olds, I remember not being nervous until we started a practice game at that first session. And
Yeah.
I had this one guy who I'm friends with now, and he was yelling at me. Everything I was doing was wrong. But I didn't have the balls to tell him that I'm not even a defender and I'm playing at the back here. I don't know what I'm doing, but I was just so nervous. But that was definitely a tough moment for me. But obviously the beginning of the future for me. So that was the only time that I probably felt nervous.
Yeah, and I asked that question um, because I know at times when people realize what's possible and it's maybe it's bigger than you ever dreamt of, like, oh my gosh, I could really potentially do this. It's easy to get afraid, right? Of like, oh my God, do I really want to commit to this? Or am I afraid of my own success potentially?
Yeah, I think I was too young. I think I was too young,
Ah,
and my fear came later on when I was actually good. And I played and prepared for games for a lot of my career with fear, and I wish I could have changed that, but somehow that fueled me. I don't know, although I didn't enjoy that, that's what fueled me to perform or probably not perform at times in some of the bigger games. So
that
yeah,
came later in life though. So when you were younger,
it did.
you were free.
Yeah, I felt free as anything, and the expectations aren't there. I think, and I
Yeah.
think that's big for athletes, right? When you get good, there's a lot of weight put on your shoulders, and
Mm.
a lot of people depending on you, and that grows as the better you get, and the more experience you get.
Yeah, no, and I think that's fantastic for parenting, as we've talked about kids and stuff, right? Is like kids are naturally free, just
Yeah,
like you. Like you were like, this is what I expected because I'm working hard and training. And your parents, it doesn't sound like they put a bunch of additional pressure on you. They let you
no,
enjoy the process, and I think that's a great parenting tip, right? Is let's make sure we're not the ones creating the pressure.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I coached my little 6-year-old soccer, and some games he's just out to lunch, and 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 then I find myself a little bit frustrated. I'm like, wait a sec, those are my expectations of him, but he's 6. He
Yeah,
doesn't know, and I got to remind myself. I don't get frustrated with him, but I question him on it. Okay, why were you not so good today? But then this weekend he was good. It was like this big celebration. I'm like, oh, okay, you're back. And anyways, yeah, expectations of your children. Yeah, there's a lot of learning what you can connect with our sport, right? To
yeah,
parenting. And I'm sure you did that as well with your sports.
yeah. And honestly, I think the parallel is both our younger two kids chose Olympic sports, right? Wrestling and gymnastics. So the Olympics is the pinnacle of those sports, similar to like, well, field hockey, you had professional leagues overseas, but still the Olympics is kind of the pinnacle.
Still the top. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so hard to be an Olympian, right? Like for wrestlers, and there's like 5 weight classes. So that means there's 5 people in the whole United States that are going to be the 2008, say, Olympic wrestling team.
Yeah.
And when your kid has that dream, you want to be like, dude, chase it, pursue it. But part of me as a parent's also like, okay, mathematically, like this is like so rare. What is our backup plan? And I'll tell you, honestly, as a parent, I was terrible at backup plans. I just,
Interesting.
I just don't do them. Like
Yeah.
I don't do them in my life. Like if I'm gonna do something, I just go do it, no matter how slim the odds are. And
I think
maybe
that's good.
yeah, I don't know, good or bad. That's kind of how we parented. Like we didn't say like, okay, well, you only have a 0.02% chance, so let's focus on mechanics. We're like, no, let's try. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's a chance. You got a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't, do I have backup plans? Well, I don't have them yet, but I'll tell you up here in Canada, I don't know if you guys know, but every kid is going to play in the NHL in ice hockey. That's what
Sure.
every parent thinks. And these kids live their life purely for ice hockey. And I don't think people have backup plans. And I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. They let their kid chase the dream. And,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think that's okay. But I'm imagining you didn't apply too much pressure or put too much expectation on your children, just based on what I've seen with you, with my children. Um, and
Yeah.
just the way you carry yourself.
I think that expectation, like you said, is like Are they having fun? Are they enjoying the process? And
Yeah.
if they are, then I support it. But if at any point like we're not enjoying this, let's go find something else we might want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. Talk me through the struggle. So you get identified to be at this level, but it takes you 4 years to actually make the team.
Yeah.
What was that
Mm.
process like of being so close but not making it?
It sucked. It honestly sucked. I would, I would train hard all year. I would go to the camps. So we'd have one camp each year where you get identified to make the national team. And I would go every year and I would score as many goals as the top scorer, who was like 35-year-old. Um, and I would run the fastest time with one other guy, Chris Gifford. I remember it. And every year we'd get, back then we weren't on email, right? So you'd get the list, and you'd see the list at the end of the camp, and it was just devastating. And I don't know, they didn't back me. So it took 4 years, and we haven't spoken about my business and my work now is coaching young athletes, female athletes that want to get scholarships in the USA for NCAA and play for Canada and stuff like that. And I'm often speaking to parents about kids not making the teams and all that sort of stuff. And I use this story because I think not making the team made me so much stronger. And if I made it early, I don't think I would have had the career that I ended up having. And I ended up surpassing all those guys that made it before me, and my friends. And I think it was good for me, but it was a battle. It really hurt. But that was a long time ago.
What
So
was the feedback they gave you? Why weren't you making it?
we didn't get feedback back then. It wasn't a
Yeah.
lot. So I would say that might have been a miss. There, they just picked the team, and that was it.
So how'd you,
Coaching's come along. Coaching's
yeah, yeah,
come a long way.
for
In
sure.
in 35 years. So
Yeah, because you were just left then to fend for yourself, right? Like your name's not on the list. You walk away and you're like, I don't know.
we'll see you next year. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was your emotion like when you, because I'm assuming you still remember walking to the board, looking at
Yeah.
the list and not being on there and being like, mother trucker.
Yeah, I cried every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggled with it. Yeah, that's what I wanted so bad. Yeah, it was hard. Yeah.
How did you channel that to stay focused then and go back and continue working hard when, you had setback after setback for 3 straight years?
Well, once I stopped feeling sorry for myself, I was pissed. So I just worked harder. I just worked harder. I wanted to beat everyone that much, bigger and better. I just wanted to be the best I could be. And I figured one day it'll come. And when I get that chance, I was going to jump on it.
Did you have any coaches back home that kind of like mentored you through this process, or was this kind of a solo endeavor at that point?
It was, I had those guys younger, like a Jurgen Lankow, Guy Mannering, Mike, who I spoke about, who played in the '84 Olympics. Those guys were, earlier on. It actually took a new to step into the national program, and he picked me after those 4 years, and he made me his guy, put me in center forward. He never took me off the field, and he backed me, and that's what it took. And with that coach, we ended up going to our first Olympics in 2000. So yeah, I sometimes text him to thank him
Sure.
for having the faith in me when others didn't. So
Yeah. So you said something that I really liked, and I want to expand upon that. You said once you quit feeling sorry for yourself, you got pissed and got back to work. How important do you think it is to allow yourself to feel sorry for a minute when you're let down like that?
that's a good question. Um, Man, uh, I think you have to go through pain to heal and kind of pick it up again. Like
Yeah.
is it, of course it's important. If you don't, if I didn't care, um, yeah, if I didn't feel that pain, then I wouldn't care enough, and it yeah,
No, I think that's
I
huge, right? I
can't
think
really say more about that. Yeah,
I love it because I think sometimes we try to rush through the pain of losing, the pain of hurt, the pain of coming up short, the pain of seeing our dream so close and we don't quite reach it. And we want to just get through it as fast as possible. And instead of sit there for a minute and go, okay, why did I come up short? Why does this hurt so bad? Oh, it
Yeah.
hurts so bad because I love it so much and I want it so bad. Now, okay, so now what can I do to get it?
Yeah.
Right. And I think, like you said, if we rush through that, we don't necessarily learn the lessons there because coming up short, like you said earlier, not making it 4 years made you better
Yeah.
for the next 20 years of your career.
Yeah. It sure did.
And if you hadn't
Yeah.
had that pain, if you'd have made it the first time, would you have respected it? Would you have appreciated it?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. And
It's
then there's many moments in my career where I can look back to a lot of tears and all, and I'm just like, wow, yeah, I went through a lot of up and downs. But yeah, it made me cherish it, made me realize how much I wanted that next step. And I mean, that's life. That is life.
it is.
And you're going, and I'm going to watch my kids do this. And for sure, I've learned a lot about the ups and downs of sport, but life, life is like big breakups and
Mm.
you pick yourself up again and off you go. And you, every time you're stronger for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You're stronger for it if you stay with it for a minute.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah. You,
go ahead.
yeah. You go through the pain. Yeah. That's stay with it. I like that. I stayed, maybe I stayed sometimes a bit too long in that stuff and dwelled in it. I would have liked to have been a little bit shorter, but yeah, I think we do, right? Yeah. I think we do.
Yeah, no, and I know it's easy to want to skip, and especially as a parent when you see your kid hurting a little bit, right? Maybe Brett comes up short in something he really wanted. You just see that pain, you want to take that pain from him, but you realize like, no, son, you got to have this pain. Like this is, I can't tell you how many times Trey and I had talks after wrestling tournaments where he's gonna be the champion today. He's gonna win all his matches and get first, and then he gets beat, and he's like sitting under the stairs crying.
Yeah.
We used to call it like putting a log on the fire, right? Like every time you come up short, you get a choice. You can quit or you use that feeling that you don't want to feel ever again and put another log on your fire. So now you come back, your fire's burning brighter and it's hotter and it's more intense. And yeah, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
I like that.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of times where like maybe we should pick another sport because we had a lot of losses.
Yeah.
But now you see him today and you talk to him, he remembers those talks and he remembers like, okay, I can believe just because I lost a little bit today doesn't mean I quit believing in myself. Just
Yeah.
means I got to appreciate my process is going to be longer than maybe the kid next to me.
Yeah. Well, when we played with Canada, we probably lost more games than we won, even though we made the Olympics a couple times. So there were moments where, for sure, I was like, "Do I keep going? Am I,
Mm.
even before the first Olympics, I was like, should I be, should I be moving on to do a teacher's degree? Should I be walking away from this? You go through those moments in sport, but in life for sure. And now that I'm a coach, I go through those moments with my coaching. You just gotta you just gotta mourn it a bit and move on and keep following your passion. That's what I try to do anyways, and I hope my boys will do the same.
Yeah, no doubt they will. You guys are setting a great example for them.
I hope so. Yeah, trying our best. Yeah,
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 no, it's awesome to watch. And I want to ask you, you mentioned it earlier, like when you first got this possibility, you were free and you were training hard and working hard and you were coming up short, but you were still going after it. And then you mentioned that once you made it, you started having more expectations, which started creating more pressure for you. What was the pressure like being an Olympian, right? Because I mean, you're the pinnacle of athletes at that point. What did that feel like, and was it what you thought it would feel like?
uh, I found it hard, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to feel like. I didn't realize how much the pressure was going to weigh on me. Um, like I was, I was one of the top players in the country. Most countries knew who I was when we were playing against them. But and I came across as a super confident, sort of powerful, pretty feisty field hockey player that people didn't on the other teams didn't love. But what people wouldn't have known is that before games, like my hands were shaking, I was gripping the stick too tight, and if when I was warming up, my first pass wasn't good, I'd be thinking about that. And that lasted a long time. So while people don't remember it, I look back on my early days, my first sort of early days, it doesn't sound like that, but 10 years, first 10 years, a lot of the biggest games, I don't think I played to my best. And that's
Mm.
because I played with a bit of doubt sometimes. And so going back to your question, I found it hard being good and having those expectations. Um, and then later on my career, I started turning my sort of negative vibes. I did this actually master's in coaching in Europe when I lived in Holland, and it taught me a little bit to turn my negative energy into positive energy. And so that kind of, I managed to sort of shift, especially as I got later in my career, which was great because as you get older, I played till I was 39. As you get older, the doubts could be stronger because you're a bit slower. Guys are getting faster and younger. But I was able to focus more on my positive as I went on. So early days, first 10 years of my career was tough. Yeah, I found that tough. And I wish I could have learned earlier to be more positive with myself.
Do you have any idea where that was coming from? Why?
I don't. And
Yeah.
I still look at things sometimes as almost like a pessimist. I look to the chance of failure before the chance of success, and it's just who I am,
Yeah.
and I just have to. I've learned to manage it a bit better, but it was frustrating, and being an elite athlete, you wouldn't think anyone's going through that stuff really when you're kind of the top of the top,
Yeah.
but I sure was. And I often wondered what other, the other top players were. What were they thinking? Were they like that? Probably not. I don't know. But
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah,
Did you ever ask anybody?
no, I should. I
Yeah.
should ask guys if they ever played with a bit of doubt
I
or
would I would
fear.
venture to say that you were not alone for sure
No,
at that
probably
level.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk us through learning to turn negative energy into positive energy. What was that process like? Like, what did you do to create that?
I so we had sports psychologists, early on, and with the national team, and Saul Miller, he was one, and really liked the guy. He was awesome, but I didn't take it seriously. I was this young guy who just, I thought, don't need to warm up, don't need to prepare, which is funny because I was also quite negative with myself and had doubts. So I was naive.
Yeah.
And then what I started to do is I started to work on visualization later on in my career. And I would, before games, I would just lie, and I would imagine good games I played, good goals I'd scored. It's simple stuff, Jerrod, but stupidly I didn't do it. And I almost made fun of the sports psychology that we did back in, but I did make fun, but I didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
I fell asleep in a couple of our visualization sessions. Like, how embarrassing is that? But then later on, I started to turn it and focus on my positive instead of my negative. And it's so simple to do, but something I think maybe we people forget. And sometimes I forget now. Yeah, focus on what I did good today, not what I screwed up.
Yeah. Well, I think we came from a different era, and
Yeah,
sports was never about your feelings, right? Like it was, at least I don't want to speak for both of us, but my experience was if you came up short, you just practice more. We didn't really dive into like what was your mind thinking?
totally.
Why didn't you believe? Because you had, and it makes sense right now as an adult. You look back and you're like, wait, if I could do it in practice, but turn the lights on for the game, I couldn't do it. Well, it's not my skill probably that changed. It's a belief. It's something in my heart, something in my mind. It's not a tangible. So let's ask questions. Let's,
Yeah.
but we just didn't do it in our generation.
No, there wasn't a lot of thought to what everyone was doing. I think we know so much more now, and it's helpful.
Yeah. What was your greatest Olympic moment? Or what it like when you look back and go, man, that's when I knew like this is special for me.
Yeah, there was. I mean, in the Olympics, you play about 6, 7 games. So if you look at the two Olympics, there's only 12 games that we played. But probably my favorite moment, I think I spoke to you on the beach about this, is in 2008. We were in Beijing, and we were going out for the first game, and I was captain, so I was at the front of the line. And I remember looking back at my brother Pete, and he was on the team, and that was our dream. And I knew when I was walking out, I'm going to see my parents and my older brother. And yeah, that's the most special moment for me, for sure. And I think I told you on the beach, I wish my brother and we were so fired up. We were playing against Australia. We knew we were in tough. But I wish I went over and gave him a big hug and said, yes, buddy, like we did this. But then we got into the game, and I didn't score my first Olympics in 2000 when I was supposed to be the hot shot goal scorer.
Yeah.
I didn't score one. We get into the next Olympic Games, and who scores the first goal for Canada? My younger brother. So that was pretty cool. I was so damn proud of him. It was an awesome moment. We lost 6-1 against Australia, but they were arguably the best team in the world. So I was proud of him, and that was a special moment for sure.
What would you say to our community that's like, oh, I resonate with that. Like I've been in moments where I should have stopped and just celebrated, but I was so focused on the next thing that it passed me by. What would you share of like how do we prevent that? How do we maybe capture more moments in our time versus more of what's coming next?
I wish there was an easy solution to that, Jerrod. I have to be honest, speaking with you made me, around the campfire or on the beach, it made me think quite a bit more about slowing down at times. And since I've been back, I've made a bigger effort to, not that I think I'm a pretty good dad, but I made a bigger effort to, hey, we're going to go buy ice hockey sticks today, even though you guys don't want to do it. We're going to do this today. And they're okay. And then off we would go. And now every night we're going out there, and it's either me saying we're going to do it. It sounds bad, but I do say it. But
Yeah.
once they're out there, they are thriving. And before, I feel like I was just like, okay, you don't want to go, we don't want to go. But that's just sort of a small moment where I'm forcing myself to stop, to get off my computer, because always got stuff to do, be okay letting go of some work if I need to, and getting outside and playing street hockey with the boys, for example. And do I have a message for everyone? No, because I'm still learning so much at 51 here. But since I've been back from this trip, we had the month away in California and in Mexico. I feel like I'm much more present, and yeah, work's important. You got to work and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like I'm doing a better job of managing my time. And yeah, it's sort of it's all over the place answer,
No,
I
I
guess.
love it. I think
But
that's the
yeah,
message right there is you're still learning, right? And I think
yeah.
that's critical for all of us to stay. And that was one of the things I was going to read in your introduction that really wanted to sit and talk with you. And I enjoyed our time in Mexico. And I was like, oh, I want to bring you to the community of the podcast is your curiousness. You are just a generally curious human. And I love that because I think, man, when we stay curious, we stay young and we stay learning and we stay open. And I really appreciated that about you. And it was, I don't know, days into our trip. So, we spent 2 weeks in Mexico together as strangers and then friends by the end of it. But it was at least 3 or 4 days before people even knew you were an Olympic athlete because you were here asking questions about what did they do? How did they do this? Right. You made everybody feel like they felt like they were the expert in whatever they told you. And I just applaud you for that. I mean, that's the life lesson to me is staying curious.
Well, thanks for that. I don't like hearing about me. I love hearing about other people.
Yeah.
And Rach and I come back from these trips, and we just did the math. We've been 6 months in our camper. We're not like you guys. We've been 6 months in our camper in 3 years. That's quite a bit for
Yeah.
people with like normal working lives and kids in school and stuff like that. But we got back, and we always say after these long trips, like, okay, what did you like the best? And every single time it's the people we met, and this one we cherished the most because we made some lifelong friends, which has been pretty special. Because often you don't get 2 weeks with people the way we did.
Sure.
So now we were living with you guys, and this group of 7 campers. And we just love getting to know people. So you guys, I remember sitting by the fire and was, okay, you got to tell me a story about being an Olympian. It was near the end of the trip. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. I want to keep learning. But yeah, no, I am very curious. And thankfully my wife, Rachel's the same. We love hearing people's stories. It's just so cool to see where everyone comes from and what they've done.
Yeah, they're so powerful, and that's where we unite is around stories, right?
Yeah.
And when you get time to share people's stories, you quit looking for division, you quit looking for differences, and you see and respect somebody else's journey because it wasn't yours.
Yeah. And they're all so different.
Yeah, and no one's right, no one's wrong. They're just different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the difference in you and I. Like, we're the same age. Your kids are out and roaming the world and doing their awesome stuff, and my kids are just starting. Like, so
Yeah.
different, such different paths, but they're our paths, and they're interesting to each of us.
And yet they still intersected for a reason,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Thankfully,
Yeah.
thankfully, my friend.
And I
Yeah,
think that's how the universe works, right? It puts us in places where we can learn, where we can grow, but we have to be open. We have to be curious.
yeah. And you are as well. You
Yeah.
guys both are. Yeah.
I enjoy it. I want to talk to you about your hockey academy. So now you're back in Canada. You've created the Rob Short Field Hockey Academy, and I loved this little statement that I saw on the website. This is training at a consistently high level with maximum effort will not only build confidence and skill on the field, but it will instill confidence and develop professionalism and excellence for everyday life. I love that part that you're wanting to coach beyond the performance on the field and understanding the impact you're going to have on their lives.
Yeah, for me, people think that because I was, playing in the Olympics and stuff, they think that I only care about high performance and girls achieving their goals athletically, making teams, getting scholarships, playing for Canada, that sort of stuff. But it's not that. There's a few things that I really, really want to kind of instill, and I want it's really hard to explain, but I do like that sort of mission statement. It's I want kids to come in and feel attached to something, and maybe they're only in for one term, which is 3 or 4 months, and they walk away. But I want them walking away feeling that they grew, not only field hockey wise, but just as a person. And I'm very careful with my staff that I hire, my coaches, my managers. I make sure I've got the right fit where these people are sharing confidence and instilling confidence in the athletes. And there's no way to put that into a sense of what we do, but we make sure the kids are thriving, and it doesn't matter if they're not going to get a scholarship, and it doesn't matter if they're going to play for Canada, it doesn't matter if they quit after high school. So sometimes I get parents saying to me, they're like, Rob, unfortunately so and so didn't play in college or in university in Canada or the US, but your program's the best thing that they did. And they did ice hockey and all the other sports, and this was the best thing that they did. And I'm so thankful that they did that. Keep doing what you're doing. And that's a win for me. That's more important for me than the kids that are getting scholarships or playing for Canada, although that's super special also. Kids just, yeah, they really enjoy what they're doing with us, and I'm super excited to be doing that. And of course I'd love to play still, but the second best job in the world, in my opinion, is being a coach and seeing these kids where I was many
Right.
years ago. Yeah, anyways, yeah, so we're trying to develop on and off the field these kids to prepare them for the future, because it's not easy. There's a lot of pressure to make university, to get into then to succeed. And yeah, so we put a lot of pressure on the athletes to run their program and not their parents. And so we put things on them, and they seem to jump on it, and they grow in the program with that stuff. So
Share with me a little bit more on that last statement. You put the athletes in charge to run their program, not parents. What does that mean?
so often parents nowadays, maybe it was in the past, my parents didn't, I drove my own path, but parents seem to, they manage their children's schedules, they make the phone calls, they write the emails, and what we try to do is we try to encourage those athletes to take that on themselves. So we have like an online portal where you're supposed to update your attendances and stuff like that. And often the athlete, they come into I said, hey, really nice to see you. And they look at me, I'm like, but you weren't supposed to be here tonight. And they're, what? Oh, that's my mom. That's my mom. I said, okay, well, your mom probably shouldn't be doing it. You're the one coming to training tonight. I need to know if you're coming or going. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's a small example of, just how we want these kids to take over this program. This is your program. Pave your own way, because university's coming quick and your parents aren't going to be telling the coach or your teachers what you're doing. So we do that. And then when we travel, a lot of programs will allow parents to come and kind of be immersed into the travel experience with the kids. We steer away from that, and
Okay.
parents can come, but they don't stay in the same hotel. We don't do dinners with the parents, and it's up to the kid to thrive with their peers
Mm.
and their coaches and their manager, but the parents aren't involved. And we think it's a really good learning experience to get on the road. And some of these kids are 13 years old. The kids it's pretty cute. Some of these 13-year-olds come in like, I'm not ready for. Yeah, you are, kid. You got this. And then by the end of the trip, they're hanging with the older kids and they're just having a blast and they're playing great. And that's big.
Yeah.
That just so that's sort of the stuff we do that's maybe different than a lot of other young youth programs.
Have you found it hard to switch from being a player that grew up in a very tough coaching environment, like our age, like coaches, I would say were harder,
Yeah.
cared less about how I felt and more about just do because I told you. Have you found it hard to transition as somebody who's coached in that model to now coaching today's kids that are very much about they want to feel involved, they want to know why? Have you found that to be difficult?
Yes, yes. Kids ask a lot more questions. I think when we were young, we just had to do it, and coaches don't care what you think. You're just
Right.
going to do it, and that has changed. There's more of a dialogue, but I like it. I like it because I get to learn more about these kids. And when they ask these questions, we can really build on stuff and learn. Um, so I think it's good. I think it's good. Of course, sometimes it brings some attitude or whatever, but that's all part of the gig. Um, Generally, 99% of the kids we get, they want to be good field hockey players, and they're just awesome. So we're so fortunate. I did coach the women's national team last year, so I got a chance to coach at that level that I played at. We went to the World Cup and stuff like that, and I sure loved the level of that and being in the international environment again. But it was hard. It was
Was it?
hard. Yeah, yeah. Those athletes, they tested me all the time. And then I almost want to call all my coaches that I had and apologize for, because I was like that. I was challenging.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, no, I love what I do. I sure love these kids, and it's fun. Yeah, it's really fun.
What's been the biggest thing you've learned about yourself through coaching?
Um, oh wow, yeah. I, um, Being on so many teams for so long, I've learned to be better just with people, managing dynamics of groups. Um, Truly, after playing and getting into this coaching, it surprised me how naturally it feels at times. Not always easy, but yeah, uh, I think I'm pretty good with groups of people, and athletes.
If
I don't.
if you could go back to 13, 14-year-old Rob that doesn't make the team, knowing what you know now, what would you tell that version of yourself?
Going back to what you said, I probably would have asked the coaches some questions for sure about why I'm not making it. Um, but I would probably say don't change anything.
Mm,
Yeah, I'd probably say keep the fire going and push. I don't think I would change anything at that time. I would change stuff later on.
yeah, I think that's so important, man. Like not to change our struggles and not to where our struggles is a wound of embarrassment or failure, but to realize like those are battle scars. And you only get battle scars by being in the fight. And it's that fight that moves you forward.
Yeah, it was interesting. You almost challenged me on the beach a little. Not challenged me because that sounds almost negative, but we spoke about regret,
Yeah.
and I have a lot. And both you and our buddy Chris were pretty shocked by the amount that I felt for my regrets. I wish I could just say, yeah, those are battle scars, and that made me who I am today. But for some reason, I feel those. I feel
Yeah.
them. I haven't been able to move past it. And we spoke about that, and it was good for me to chat with you guys about that.
Yeah. I think it's a ongoing process though, right? And I don't think it's a cookie cutter, whereas it's a certain time for everybody. Sometimes some battles take longer for a person to work through than for somebody else. And I think that's all right too.
Or some you don't ever work through, and they're just there.
Potentially.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially too. I'm no expert on it, that's for sure. I just know that we're not going to get out of this life unscarred.
No.
And we're not going to get out of this life without some hurt and pain along the way. But how we handle that's going to dictate where we end up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I learned that the way you think on the beach, and it was good to hear it. Doesn't mean I can do it, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But it
no,
was
dude.
impressive.
Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows,
Yeah.
right? The cool thing is this ride isn't that long. By the time we get all the answers, the ride's over anyhow.
It sucks. I know.
Well, Rob, where can our community stay connected with you at and follow along and you coaching the next generation of our female field hockey players, specifically out there in Vancouver?
Well, yeah. I mean, we obviously have a website and Instagram with Rob Short Coaching, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think my story is that exciting, but uh, yeah, I'm just here doing my thing and loving life and traveling as much as possible. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you, Rob. It's been an honor to have you on the show and to share your powerful story with our community, no matter how powerful you think it is or isn't, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you thinking it's powerful. Well, thank you very much for having me on, Jerrod. Appreciate it, my man.
Thank you.